when you're younger and there wasn't the PW, the ultimate dream of a girl was to play in the NHL. So now that we can make that dream become a reality in the PWHL, it's something you've always looked forward to, and to be able to compete alongside and against the best of the best, just will allow me to develop and grow my game even more.
Welcome to Rinkside Rundown, the podcast that puts you right in the heart of women's hockey. I'm your host, Chris Sinclair, and each week I'm on a mission to showcase the incredible women who are lighting up the ice across the globe. Get ready as I chat with rising stars, seasoned pros, and all the game changers making waves in the world of women's hockey that you won't find anywhere else. So, let's dive into the exciting world of women's hockey, and make sure to click that subscribe button so you never miss an exciting episode. Hello and welcome back to Rinkside Rundown, the podcast that brings you inside the world of women's hockey, one story at a time. I'm your host, Chris Sinclair, and today's guest is a defender whose steady presence on the blue line, championship pedigree, and international experience have made her one of the most dependable and decorated players in college hockey. Riley Brengman, a standout at Ohio State, is a two-time national champion, a Big Ten Distinguished Scholar, and a two-time AHCA All-American Scholar from her early days competing in powerhouse programs like Little Caesars and Belle Tire in Michigan to representing Team USA. Riley has shown that she thrives in big moments. Now with the PWHL Draft on the horizon, she's ready to take the next step in her hockey career. Riley, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Chris, thank you so much. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. And even better because I have been looking forward to this conversation since we started talking. So thank you so much for joining the show. And before we get into your incredible career, we are starting, as we will also end this show, which is with a game. Are you ready to jump into this game that you genuinely have no idea of at this point?
Oh, I'm ready.
Perfect. Great. It's a game called Pick One. Now, maybe I'll come up with a better name for it so it sounds a little bit more enticing. But basically, I'm going to throw you two options. You just have to go with your gut. Which is better? Which one do you want to lean towards? Just go with your gut. Don't overthink it. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's do this. Power play quarterback or shutdown penalty killer?
Ooh, shutdown penalty killer.
Good option. Double OT game winner or tournament winning assist?
Ooh, double OT winner.
Oh, nice. Okay, great. Winning with a buzzer beater or dominating wire to wire?
Ooh, dominating wire to wire.
Representing Team USA or winning another NCAA title?
Ooh, both great options. We've had this discussion before, but I think I got to go NCAA title.
Okay, fair. Never gets old. I appreciate that. Leading by example or firing up the locker room with a great speech?
Leading by example.
Oh, there was no hesitation there. I like that. Okay. Rivalry game win or playoff shutout?
Ooh, rivalry win game.
Game day nap or pregame pump-up playlist?
Ooh, game day nap. I love a game day nap.
Home cooked meal after practice or Chipotle run with teammates?
Ooh. Let's go Chipotle run.
Okay, not what I was expecting, but I respect that. I respect that. I've never had Chipotle. I know it's shocking.
You haven't?
No, not once. And there's one that's dangerously close to me, so I don't know how I've been able to.
You're gonna have to try.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get your feedback from that one.
Lecture hall in the morning or night class after practice?
Oh, I had them both. In this semester, I had afternoon, and I think I have to go morning. Just get it done and over with, and after practice, you have time to chill. So I'm going to go morning.
Yeah, that would be my approach. And lastly, quiet walk to reset or loud music to recharge?
Ooh, quiet walk to reset for sure.
That's fair. Same. All right. See, that was easy.
That was easy.
Yeah, that was the game there. It's just a great way for us to kind of quickly get to know you. And honestly, you surprised me with some of your answers. So it's maybe foreshadowing some of your upcoming answers.
It might be.
It might be. Are you ready to dive into your career?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's start where it all started. We're going to rewind the tape right to the beginning of your hockey journey. And growing up in China Township, Michigan, how did you first get introduced to the game of hockey?
Yeah, so I have three siblings, two older brothers, one younger sister, and my oldest brother, Liam. He played hockey. So growing up, I was always at the rink, and we have a pond in our backyard, so it always freeze in the winter. And all four of us were out there with my parents playing hockey, and that was just honestly the stepping stone in the right direction. Wanted to follow in big brother's footsteps, and like I said, always at the rink, and just kind of wanted to be like him. And that's honestly how my love for hockey started.
I love when a story of getting into hockey starts with a good old ODR.
Oh,
There's nothing better, nothing more
nothing better.
quintessential
Nothing
to
better.
hockey than an ODR. I love that. And
Yes.
it's great that you mentioned about family because I think as a fan, we often obviously we're seeing for you, especially like the titles, this, like the incredible academics awards that you've received, the points, the wins, all of these different things, but we don't necessarily see or know about the impact of the people behind the scenes, like family,
Hmm.
as you've mentioned.
Hmm.
Right from the start, family was important to you. Um, and family does really play such a key role in every athlete's journey, whether you're a hockey player, what have you. How do you, beyond kind of as you've mentioned, as aspiring to be just like your older brother, how did family support you throughout your career and especially early on?
I mean, my family is everything. They've been my biggest supporters. They've made so many sacrifices for my parents, the early morning drives, the late night practices, the countless tournaments, the amount of money, the amount of dedication. I just gave my senior speech on Sunday, and I honestly gave it all to them, and I wouldn't be where I am today without them. And not only my parents, but also my siblings. They've come to many of my games, been my biggest cheerleaders, been there when I've needed it the most. And honestly, besides like the time and the money and everything, the biggest thing is they've believed in me, and that's something every athlete needs is your big support system behind you. And I remember like the tough games, and you'd be upset or you get hurt or something, and my biggest supporter was, I'd always go to my mom. She's been my rock. And then the dad of every family, always challenges you to keep growing and get better. But honestly, I wouldn't be where I am today without all of them. They're truly everything to me.
Yeah, I guess, and I think that's one of the reasons why I really love asking this question is because it is a really clearly it's a really profound thing for you, right? Like just
Hmm.
how important your mom has been, and your dad being that one who's really trying to push you and help you to see the potential that you have in yourself. When you think, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I'm going to because it kind of fits in well now rather than talking about it later. But especially as you're looking at this next chapter, or maybe as you've gone through your career, junior to then collegiate to now, a
Hmm.
professional career, maybe, what does it mean to still have that support and to, there are going to be, like you mentioned, there are always going to be those moments as an athlete where you kind of doubt yourself. This next step for you is a huge step. Um,
Hmm.
what does it mean to have them there with you throughout these giant monumental moments in your career more than just like you said, like it's fantastic that they've helped to drive you to and from games. Financially they were there to support you as well, but what does it also mean that they've been there for you each chapter and their support has never wavered?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, it means everything. And like you said, their support has never wavered. And I think, it's just going to keep growing and growing. This is a huge step that I'm about to take, hopefully once I get drafted. And, to have them by my side, even if they come to five five games in total, that's still better than none. And just to be able to look up and find your parents in the stands, it means everything being an athlete, and just knowing the support and the love that they give you, the sacrifices that they make to be there for you. So honestly, like I said earlier, I wouldn't be where I am today without them. And super excited for the next steps, and honestly to get them experiencing new parts of the country and everything like that as well. So super excited.
Again, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I do want to know what's it been like for you to, as you mentioned there, just being able to look up into the stands and know that your family's there. When you think about this next step in your career, what is it? How, like, not again, not to maybe project too far into the future, but what do you think it's going to mean to be playing professional hockey, the sport you love, at the highest of levels, and look up into the stands and know that your family's there?
It would mean everything. I do have three siblings and two parents, but honestly, no one in either side of the family has been a professional athlete. So that's also a huge stepping stone in our family and, kind of setting that standard already. But just to be able to have them there and just to be able to look up, it would mean everything, and seriously makes that moment so much better, just knowing that your loved ones are there supporting you.
Of that. And we're going back to your junior career. We're kind of going a little all over the place here, but with good reason. Looking back on your junior career, it was incredibly successful. And a big part of that is playing for clubs, like I mentioned, Belle or Little Caesars. What do you remember most about those days?
Yeah, honestly, it's the friendships you make. You learn the coaches you love and the ones that challenge you in ways, and the ones you might not like as much. And just it's all about the girls that you play alongside, and just the friendships you create. Whether it's the long practices that you bond over, or the tournament weekends, when the long trips and just hanging out in the hotels and everything. And those years really teach you like how to compete, how to be a better teammate, how to push yourself. And I wouldn't be here today without everyone that's crossed my path and got me to where I am. So super grateful for all of them. But honestly, it's all about the friendships and the girls. I'm still best friends with a lot of the girls I played with, and still have contact with almost all of them. So super grateful for that.
I want you to know that I've been lucky enough to connect with a few players who have previously played in those programs, and that's a very similar answer, is that yes, the championships or the wins were great, and there were a lot of them. It's a great program, but it really is the lasting friendships. Like, everyone is like, we still talk, we're still in group chats. It's incredible that it's more than just what happens on the ice. It's what actually happens off the ice that may actually be more profound.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But speaking of on the ice, you actually had the opportunity to wear the C with Little Caesars. And then you were also an assistant captain with Belle Tire. So leadership is obviously something that you're naturally gifted with. But I want to know, for you, and maybe this applies more now than it did then, but I still want to know, for you, what does leadership mean?
Yeah, I think especially at that younger age, it's more about like setting the tone. Yeah, you've come across some good leaders that you've been led by, but I think for me, it was just like being that leader that sets the tone. I'm not necessarily the loudest one in the locker room, but leading by example, and just how hard you work and how you treat others, and how you respond to adversity. I think those are the biggest things, and something that I really push myself to do, and to lead by example, especially at those younger ages. And like I said, I wasn't the loudest in the room, but leading by example is my way of leading. So definitely just setting the tone at that young age.
Yeah, I figured that might be your answer, considering earlier I asked you whether you'd want to be doing that big time speech or
Yeah,
leading by example, and without hesitation, leading by example. So
leading by example,
I had a feeling
absolutely.
that might be your answer here.
Oh yeah.
Um, but speaking of being a leader at such a young age, I mean, being a leader at any age, there's so much pressure that comes with that. And especially being a part of such a great program, or such great programs in Michigan. How did you balance the pressure of being a leader with your own development, and not forgetting, hey, I want to continue growing as a player, and almost more importantly, as an individual, as a person away from the ice as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It gets tough at times balancing everything you just said. And, it's how do you as a leader balance yourself, but also your hockey and your teammates and everything. And, at that young age, you feel like you have to be perfect in a way. And, you know, but you learn early on that being a leader doesn't mean that you have to have all the answers. And, it's honestly just being true to yourself, being resilient and willing to learn in front of others, and learn from those you've come across in the past as your leaders, and learning from your coaches, and just learning from all of those around you. And I think it's really just staying true to yourself, and how do you lead by example, but take care of yourself, but also your teammates.
Good answer. And it's something that still applies even now, right? Those are
Yes,
those are
absolutely.
skills that just continue to evolve with each step you're taking in your career.
Hmm.
Um, I don't need to tell you this, but obviously Michigan is a rather hockey-rich state, as
It
you're well
is
aware. Yeah.
definitely.
How did growing up in such a hockey-rich state influence your development, and what was it like to constantly face top-tier competition?
Yeah, so like you said, Michigan breeds great hockey players, and fortunately, we're still waiting for that D1 program. But there's so much talent, and you get to compete against the best day in and day out, and it really forces you to uh, evolve your game. And how do you either fall down, or do you stand up and approach that competition? So you honestly, you can't take a day off, and whether you're the best skater or you still lack some of that, it's just how do you challenge yourself to get better day in and day out. And you have the great opportunity to compete against the best, so it's how do you challenge yourself and hold and stay true to yourself.
And when you think back to your time with those programs, but just being again from Michigan, such a hockey-rich state, um, what are some of those lessons that you've taken from that and kind of applied now, obviously, to your collegiate career? To kind of what were those things that really that aided you in that transition from junior to college, and now as you're preparing for this next big, exciting, awesome, incredible step in your career?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I touched on it. There's so much talent, so that was honestly a huge advantage for me, getting to compete against the best, and that really helped me advance to college. And then here in college, you compete against the best from all over the world, and it's getting those opportunities to be able to compete against the best. We play arguably the best and the hardest league. So just getting those opportunities to continue to develop and grow as a player, and believe in yourself and push yourself to new challenges and new heights that you never thought you could accomplish.
And one of the things that I really enjoyed reading about when it comes to you was the fact that, again, an aspect of your career that people may not know necessarily as much about is what you're doing away from the ice. And one of those things is that you have, from a young age, been committed to giving back to the community. Um, was that something that you were always passionate about, or how did that sort of evolve, and and how has that continued to evolve now, especially in during your collegiate career as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always been something, I've been very passionate about, and that's who I am. I love giving back, and I love, making that change and being that role model to that younger generation. And I was lucky enough to have the support growing up, and once I realized that platform, I honestly wanted to give back to it. So whether it was working or helping with a youth camp, or working at a homeless shelter, or wherever it may be. It just reminds me of why I truly fell in love with the game in the first place. And just, I want to be, like I said, that role model to the younger generation and continue giving back. And I've done a lot of community service here in college. And, honestly, it makes me happy. Honestly, it probably makes me happier than the younger ones that I impact. So it's been great. And I'm super grateful that I've been able to give back to the community in any way possible.
Perfect segue. So thank you for this, because it's important to have the conversation around role models. So fortunately enough, now for a lot of young girls, they're with the PWHL, with just more visibility, whether it's on TV, whether it's just more media coverage, just in general. There are a lot more opportunities for young girls to see themselves in the sport. But unfortunately, for generations beforehand, yourself is included in that. There wasn't necessarily that same level growing up, especially when you were younger. But when you were younger, I know that you've mentioned how important your brother was and how much of an influence he was, and your parents. Outside of the family, as important as they were in becoming an influence on your life and your career, who are some of those other role models or some of those other influences that you had growing up, and maybe now, with college hockey, I'm going to say in the rear view mirror, although it's still very close in that rear view mirror.
Yes, it is.
But even during your collegiate career, who were some of those people as well?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the PW is growing, and someone that I truly looked up to was Megan Keller, a Michigan native and a defenseman, and someone I've always looked up to since I was very young. And then there's also the Kendall Coyne and the Hillary Knight and all of them. But, it's not just their skill on the ice, but it's also their leadership both on and off the ice and how they've grown and pushed women's hockey to new levels. And, if you would have thought 10 years ago, there probably would have never been a professional women's hockey league, but if it wasn't for them, there honestly wouldn't be. So all credit to them and those who put in the behind the scenes work. But it's just not only who you are on the ice, but off the ice as well. And those names are the ones that I've truly looked up to.
Well, yeah, and they're synonymous with women's hockey just in general, but especially the growth of women's hockey in the United States. So very, very good choices there. But now I'm going to flip it on you. So I'm going to conversely, we've talked about what it's meant to you to have those role models, but also you had touched on it a little bit, but I want to hear a little bit more as well. What it means to you to be now, so, young girls are going to be, they're going to be lacing up the skates for the first time saying, I want to be like Riley Brengman. Like, what does that mean to you to know that now you are impacting the future generations just like these incredible names have impacted you?
Honestly, it means everything. And I've been grateful with the opportunity to actually help out here in Columbus with the Blue Jackets youth programs. And, just seeing the growth in Ohio is not a very big state for women's hockey. And just to be able to see it growing, even in my 5 years I've spent living here, just from year 1 to year 5, it's been incredible. And to see the growth and the impact that we can make and all the little girls that come to our games and the impact that we make on them is truly incredible.
Maybe this is going to be one of the many silly questions I might ask, but how does that fuel you, maybe both on and off the ice, when it comes to seeing that growth in, as you mentioned, in Columbus, seeing that growth from it's only 5 years. Like, what does that do to fuel you both as a player, but also as just as an individual in the community?
I mean, yeah, as a player, you want to be the one that they look up to. You want them to be saying, wow, I want to be like Riley Brengman when I get older. And, that there's a lot of passion that comes with that. And then also just in the community, you want to be the one making the impact. If you can take an hour or two out of your day to go put a smile on the kids' faces, like this past Saturday, I had the opportunity of working with the Columbus Blue Jackets Learn to Play program. And, there was a section for co-ed, and then there was a section for just females, and to be able to be out there running the section and just seeing the impact that you make, and it truly makes a difference on myself.
Yeah, it's the what may seem or be perceived as the little things in life often make the biggest impact. And
absolutely,
yeah,
it's very inspiring to see.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked long enough about, or we've alluded rather long enough to this incredible stretch of your career at Ohio State. And I want to know, and again, this is now at least the second silly question that I'm going to ask, but why Ohio State? What was it about Ohio State that you were like, this is where I want to continue my career?
Yeah, honestly, being a Michigan kid, you don't think you would land up in the rivalry state. But like I said earlier, there is no D1 program in this whole state of Michigan for women's hockey. And, honestly, when I got the opportunity to come on an official visit and unofficial visits and everything, and I truly fell in love with it the second I stepped on campus. And yeah, is it the closest to home? Yes, it is. But honestly, it's just the resources that we have here, the facilities, the coaching staff is, and everything like that. It truly made a difference. And I'm very happy, very grateful for the last 5 years I've had here. And honestly, it's felt like home. Absolutely.
Well, okay, but don't take away from just because it's close doesn't mean that there's still not, I want to that's still not an easy step to take, right? Like to, not only to just choose where you're going to continue your career, but also, Ohio State, they're known to be one of the top tier programs. They continue to somehow continue to find a way to continue, just keep getting better year after year.
Mm-hmm.
I watched them a number of games this season on TV, and it's just like how they just find another gear every game. When you think about those experiences, and just like you said, you even just over 5 years, you've seen the evolution of certainly fan support, but you would have also seen firsthand the growth of the program. When you think about the growth of this program, how do you think that influenced you as a player, and maybe also further emphasized this was probably the right choice for me in terms of next step in my career?
Yeah, so I think honestly the biggest thing is having the belief in the coaching staff. And, when I talked with Muzzy and everything, and, I knew I wanted to play for her from seeing even that. I think that would have been her third season was my freshman year, her third or fourth season, I believe. And just seeing how she's turned the program around, and from year 1 to year 3, it was incredible. And then to be able to come in and, my freshman year, no one thought we probably would have made the Frozen Four. So just to be able to see the growth of the program, and then I've made a Frozen Four every single year I've been here. So just the belief that she has not only in her players, but also in herself, and, using the amazing resources that we have here. And just, I wanted to continue to grow and make it to the next steps of, the ultimate goal is the Olympics and now the professional hockey. And, I just knew that Muzzy would be the right choice for that. And, I'm super grateful for everything she's done for me both on and off the ice, and has truly developed me into the player that I am today.
Thank you. I love it's again like these are things that fans don't necessarily get to see, right? Like we see, the press conferences with the coach, but unless you're in that room, unless you're involved in that program, you don't necessarily see just how much of an impact a coach can have. And especially when you're taking a big leap, you don't necessarily know just how you're hopeful that these next steps are going to be really impactful for you, but you never really know until you're there. And then
Exactly.
now
Yeah.
when you look in that rear view mirror, you're like, yes, look at the
Yeah.
impact.
And there's a lot of things. A lot of people don't know what we go through. And, she pushes us to new heights and new levels that we never thought we could get to. The standard is just getting higher and higher, and all credit to her for staying true to herself, but also pushing her players to become better and make it to the next level, because ultimately that's what she wants for us. And, you don't see what goes on a Monday practice, or how the preparation for the games come, or the amount of conditioning we do and everything like that to get to the end goal of becoming a national champion. So
Yeah, and I mean, a perfect segue again. So once again, thank you for this, because I want to know as well, like, you've mentioned that you're a national champion, multiple times, 2022,
yeah.
2024. Like the list continues, and um I think there's the obvious answer is how great winning is, because that's really what it is really, it's a pretty good feeling. But more than that, how do you think winning those championships helped to make you a better player, but helped to make you also a better person? And maybe did you notice a difference in how it felt to win the first time as opposed to most recently?
Yeah, so honestly, 2022 was magical. Honestly, that's all I can say about it. It's the first one in program history. So to be able to, have my name stamped in program history is just truly incredible. That group that we had there, no one would have ever thought we would have won. But the resilience we had, the work we put in, and the belief we had in one another, it truly was a dream come true. And to be able to do it with that group of girls was very special. And then fast forward to 2023. It's on your back, you have a big target on your back, and then to make it all the way and lose to Wisconsin 1-0, that was a heartbreaker. But we knew 2024, it was our revenge tour, and we were coming for them. And obviously the results ended up in our favor, 1-0 again. But it was just honestly to be able to be a two-time national champion, and to just to not necessarily compare the two, but 2024 was probably the best team I'll ever be a part of. We set many program records. The amount of skill and talent that we had on that team is truly remarkable. And honestly, Muzzy still says it to this day that she doesn't know if she'll ever coach a team with that much skill and that much talent like we had in 2024. So both were extremely, extremely grateful years, and to be able to do it 2 times, and just with, the girls on the team and the staff that we had and everything like that, it was truly, truly remarkable, and truly something I'll never forget, that's for sure.
How do you think that has helped to, like, winning, being involved in with great teams alongside great teammates, everyone buying into the same system, everyone being there, everyone having each other's backs? How do you think that's prepared you for this next step in your career?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, you surround yourself with amazing players day in and day out, and we challenge and we push each other each and every day to get better. So, whether it's the conditioning that we do or the buy-in that we all have, the ultimate goal is to win a national championship, and to be able to do that and to see what you can achieve, especially when you don't necessarily believe it, or you might think of Monday practice like, wow, I don't even know if I'm going to survive the day. Just to be able to, have that belief in one another, and that belief and trust in yourself that you can truly accomplish anything when you set your mind to it.
Okay, so let's expand on that, because I want to know as well, when you reflect on your 5 seasons or 5 years with Ohio State, what were some of the things, the biggest lessons that you learned, not as an athlete, because I think you've highlighted those perfectly, but as a person, as an individual away from the ice? What are some of those biggest lessons, biggest takeaways for you personally?
Yeah, I think honestly, like I said, I've touched on it a lot on the ice, but it also correlates off the ice. And that's just having that belief in yourself, and, setting your standards high to be able to achieve it, not only, excuse me, in the classroom, but also in the community. And, we get challenged every year. We've had the highest team GPA all 5 years here. So I know that's Muzzy pushing us to make sure we achieve both in the classroom and on the ice, but that honestly allows me to push myself to higher challenges, and to be able to, just to be able to do that not only on the ice but off the ice. It's hockey isn't going to be the rest of my life. So to be able to have that success after hockey, it's just truly grateful.
I don't want to miss the opportunity to, as I mentioned off the top, to be able to celebrate some of the academic honors that you achieved. Big Ten Distinguished Scholar, All-American Scholar. Like, again, once again in your career, this list goes on. It's a very long list. I'm just highlighting only a couple because I don't have time to go through the rest of the honors that you've won. But you spoke earlier about sort of balancing being an athlete, being a leader. In this case, how in the world do you balance the attention to detail when it comes to the program on the ice, but maintaining, as you just said, the incredibly high academic standards? How do you balance it? And maybe what's some advice that you would have? Because from the outside, I'm like, I don't know that I could do one or the other. And here you are doing both with incredible success. What advice might you also have for someone who's looking at their collegiate career and might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed with the notion of having to find that balance?
Yeah, so obviously college, being an athlete, you have your academic life, you have your athletic life, and then the social life that many people probably don't think that we have. So, there's just a balance right there. So just being disciplined to yourself, having a routine, I think that's been the biggest thing for me, is just getting into a routine of this day, I need to do this, 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 this. I think that's the biggest thing. And whether that's, everyone's different in how they plan and have a routine, whether that's, planning your weeks out in advance, or if you go day by day. So I think honestly, just being, having that balance and having that routine truly helps you. And I think the biggest advice would be just, there's a lot that goes on. There's many hours you spend at the rink, and there's many hours you spend in the classroom doing homework and everything, but it's truly enjoying the moment and having fun, not only with your teammates, but making friends outside of the rink, and just being true to yourself, but also having that balance of your social life, your athletic life, and your academic life.
Yeah, I guess I totally forgot about that third piece, which is, social life, because you're allowed to have one of
Many
those
people
even as
do.
an athlete. Last question I have for you in terms of your collegiate career. What do you want your legacy to be with the Buckeyes?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Everyone wants to leave a legacy, so I hope the legacy that I've left behind is just making the people around me better. I think that's been the biggest thing is just how did I leave this program and how did I make the people around me better? I'm someone who gives it my all on and off the ice, clearly, with everything I've accomplished in my 5 years here. And, honestly, I feel like I've helped raise that standard. So having that standard to where the younger generation can, achieve to be like that. So I think honestly the biggest thing is just making those around me better.
Good answer. Um, Next is a rather significant chapter of your life as well, and one that I'm excited to see again and again as your hockey career continues. But that's being able to represent your country, one of likely the biggest honor you could ever have in any sport, but specifically here when it comes to hockey. When you look back on that first opportunity you had to represent your country, do you remember what that moment felt like, and what it also what it felt like to just put on that jersey for the first time, and how long did it take to really sink in that you're representing your country?
Honestly, I guess I would say the feeling is unreal. That's something you dream of when you're a young kid. I still dream of becoming an Olympian one day. So, you dream growing up of being able to just put the jersey on and then to be able to represent your country is just, it's an amazing honor. And, it's something everyone dreams of. So to be able to have that opportunity to suit up for Team USA, it was truly grateful. I did participate in the rivalry series, and to be able to get my first point in my first game, that was a huge honor as well. So just super grateful for that opportunity and hopeful for more to come.
Yeah, and talking about the rivalry series, you also competed in the collegiate series as well. Um, When you think about that level of competition, I mean, they say that the greatest rivalry in sports is Canada US. And we see it year in, year
Mm-hmm.
out at all of these various tournaments in a ton of different sports. Um, but when you compare that international level of play, where the stakes are, you're playing for your country, they're a little bit higher. That how would you compare those experiences and the intensity of that competition with college?
Yeah. Obviously, there at that level, you're playing with the best of the best. And you say it at college, and there are college kids that make it to that level and you get to play against them. But, honestly, at that level, you are playing with the best of the best, and it truly demands your absolute best. So to be able to be constantly pushed and get pushed outside your comfort zone and make those changes and those challenges and how do you adapt to all of those, that's truly where your growth comes. And I'm super grateful for the opportunities that I've been given to be able to challenge me as a player and make me better, but just being pushed by the best of the best in practice and then in that rivalry series, it's truly an honor.
And also, like, just going back to those experiences, what were some of your favorite memories? What were some of your favorite, and obviously you've highlighted one really important one, being able to get your own point, your first points in the program. That would definitely be right up there at the top of the list. I can only assume, but
Yeah,
also,
absolutely.
yeah, which is fair. But also, maybe away from the ice, being able to connect, as you mentioned, with some of the best in the, that are playing around the world, but that are representing the U.S. What were some of those uh, favorite memories that you had that maybe helped to shape you, or both as a player but also as an individual away from the ice as well?
Yeah, I think the favorite memories are just playing with the people that you idolize growing up and to be able to, you know, be in the same locker room as them and to be able to hang out with them outside of the rink and build that connection and get to know more about them personally and everything like that. I would say that's probably the biggest memory, is just being able to make those connections with those girls that you've idolized your whole life, and to be able to put that jersey on alongside of them is truly a great honor. And honestly, that's probably my favorite memory, is just being able to be there, be in the same locker room, be in the same atmosphere, and to be able to connect with them and learn from them.
Okay, I asked you the same question before about fueling your fire, but how much did this fuel your fire to, like, when you're sitting in the same, in the same locker room,
Mm-hmm.
in a stall next to some of the people that if you have, looked up to, that are just absolutely incredible in the sport. How much did that also layer into the fuel that is the fire of your hockey career?
Oh, a huge deal. It's an honor to be in that same locker room and have that opportunity to play alongside them. But, it's a big fuel to the fire, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no surprise there. I can only assume what it must feel like, not only to put on that jersey for the first time, but to
Mm-hmm.
be sitting in that locker room. And as you mentioned, it probably took some time for it to go from "this is surreal" to, like,
Mm-hmm.
"oh no, now I have to get into the moment. I
Yeah,
I can't be thinking about how cool this is. I got to
right,
play a
right.
game."
I need to perform.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's no big deal.
Yeah,
So actually, speaking of big deals, you have declared for the PWHL draft.
I have.
You
Super
have.
excited.
Yes.
I have.
So before I even dive into any of those questions that I have for you, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
How does it feel?
Lots of emotions, lots of excitement, lots of nerves. Super honored, super excited for this opportunity and what's to come next.
When you Now we're gonna rewind the tape again, okay? When you look back on, when you first fell in love with this sport, back then the options really were, you get to represent your country after you graduate college, of course. You get to
Mhm.
represent your country. Maybe you end up playing in Europe. Those are really the only options that you have, um, to continue at least playing hockey. Now there's the PWHL. Now you've declared for this professional league. Maybe just talk about what this means to you, knowing that you're going to be able to continue your career, and you're going to be able to do it as you've done throughout your career already, with the best of the best.
Yeah. It means everything, honestly. When you're younger and there wasn't the PW, the ultimate dream of a girl was to play in the NHL. So now that we can make that dream become a reality in the PWHL, it's something you've always looked forward to, and to be able to compete alongside and against the best of the best, just will allow me to develop and grow my game even more.
When you are looking now at making this jump, and fortunately enough, you've been a part of a program that has very clearly helped set you up for success taking this next jump. But there is still, going from the collegiate level to the pro level, obviously, beyond just the style of play in this league, there are adjustments that need to be made. When you're preparing for this next stage of your career, what goes into that prep? Both, I think, physically, because again, like there's checking, there's a physical aspect of the game that isn't a part of the collegiate game, but also mentally. How are you preparing for this, and not enjoying the moment, yes, but not letting yourself get too ahead of yourself in all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's different from college. College preseason starts in August, whereas this preseason might be starting in November. So I think it's just, how do you balance, the preparation you've been doing the last 5 years for college now into this professional world. And, that's obviously still a lot of on ice skating, a lot of work in the weight room and everything along those lines. So it's just, how do you fine tune your game, but also stay, mentally engaged, mentally prepared for when the moment's about to come. So I think it's just still kind of learning how to find that balance. And, what route do you take in the weight room? Are you still doing a bunch of strength training, hard weight, heavy, for months straight, or do you kind of cut back? So I think it's still finding that balance, and learning what's going to work and what's not, just to be prepared both mentally and physically for the opportunity.
Okay, here's another silly question for you. I'm going to throw it at you. You ready?
I'm ready.
How are you feeling about your preparation? How is everything coming along? How just, the draft is right around the corner. It's going to be here. Season's going to start. How are you feeling?
Mhm. I'm feeling great. I'm in great hands here. I'll be here in Columbus training, with one of the best strength coaches. So super grateful for her and everything that she's done for us. My last few years here that she's been with us, and I feel ready. I'm ready. I'm going to have a great summer, work hard, get better, and fine tune my games in areas that I need to fine tune, and I'm gonna be ready for the opportunity when it comes.
Well, I can't wait because, fortunately enough, the draft is actually being held in my hometown. So I will be there live, and I'll be able to
Awesome.
hear your name called live, which is just going to be selfishly, an incredible opportunity for me. I know, obviously, for you, it's going to mean so much, especially when you think about your journey to this point. And maybe that
Mhm.
begs the question, when you look at your journey, like, does it feel real that this next step, like, you've seen success at every level that you've played. You've challenged yourself. You've grown as such an incredible athlete, but an equally incredible person. When you like, does it feel real yet that this has all led to this moment?
Honestly, no. And I don't know if it will, but maybe when I get that opportunity to put on the jersey for the first time, of wherever I am hopeful to get drafted to. So I think that's when it will truly soak in. Right now I still can't believe my 5 years in college is up. So, it went by in a blink of an eye, and I can't believe I was here for 5 years. It's incredible, unforgettable 5 years, but, still kind of in disbelief that, I'm not coming back in August to train and have another incredible season. But I'm super, super honored and grateful and excited for what's to come next.
Okay, well, let's talk about that because, we've seen, as I said earlier, we've seen the growth and the exposure of women's hockey, women's sports in general, but obviously in this case, speaking specifically about women's hockey, we've seen it just explode. We're seeing most recently the Women's Worlds new European record. Over 122,000 fans showed up in total for that tournament. We're constantly here in Ottawa. We just set another record at the home of the Ottawa Charge in terms of attendance. We're just seeing such a passionate fan base. It was
Mm-hmm.
always there, but there was just never an outlet we just couldn't watch the game. We couldn't experience the game. Now, when you think about the fact that you're entering this exciting new chapter of women's hockey, of women in sports, of women's sports, what does it mean to you to be a part of this chapter? And you're really in. I know that we're a season and a half into this league, but you're still in on the ground floor. So you're going to help to define what this league looks like, what women's hockey looks like, what women's sports looks like. How exciting is that for you?
It's very exciting. Like you said earlier, I didn't have this growing up. I barely had many women to look up to. So just to be able to be someone that the younger generation can look up to, I think the biggest thing that excites me is the visibility. And like you mentioned, there's the women basketball, the records that are being set, within basketball, within hockey, and all these female sports. Young girls can finally turn on the TV and, see someone that looks just like them playing the sport that they love and have an aspiration to be just like them. So I think that's the biggest thing that excites me is just the visibility. The league is still building and there's lots of building to come, but it's super exciting and it'll be incredible to see where this league can come in 5 years down the road.
It begs the question as well on the flip side is do you feel pressure? Do you feel like this might like this isn't such an incredible moment? Maybe I'm projecting and I'm putting myself in your shoes, but I feel like I would be sitting here and I'd be like, I'm part of this. I'm going to help to define this. Oh
Mm-hmm.
boy, don't screw this up. Do you ever kind of feel that way, or is it over all of these years of you continually redefining who you are, challenging yourself, and meeting those moments that has set you up where you're like, yeah, okay, it's a big moment, of course, but I'm ready for it.
I think there's both. I am ready for what's to come next, but I also think, looking back on that and the excitement that's around the whole league, from everything that's coming into it, and the opportunities that there are for women hockey players now. So I think there's a lot of excitement, a lot of I do belong here, and along everything along those lines.
Okay, last question, and then we're going to get to the second game that we're going to play today. I want to know as well, projecting into the future, obviously you don't know where you're going to be drafted, but wherever you go, you will make an impact. But I want to know from you, what kind of impact are you looking to make? And you can take this in any direction. You can say, I want to make this impact on the ice, or I want to make this impact in the community, which is something that obviously is still near and dear to your heart. Wherever you want to go, I want to know, what kind of impact are you looking to make as you embark on this exciting next chapter of your career?
Yeah, I think there's an impact I want to make both on and off the ice. On the ice, I want to be that steady, reliable defenseman that teams can count on me, put me out there in any situation, and that I can handle it. And then I want to be a role model. I want to be someone that the younger generation looks up to and inspires to be like. So I think those are probably the two biggest things, both on and off the ice. But it's just inspiring the next generation to believe big and believe in themselves, that they can get to where I am.
Fantastic answer. Perfect way to end that part of the conversation and to dive into the rapid fire question segment of the show. And I always say, and the listeners, the viewers are going to be like, Chris is going to go through this speech again. Great. But here it is. I'm going to say this is rapid fire only because I'm going to try to hold back from asking any follow-up questions. You can take as long as you want, but as you've experienced firsthand, I ask a lot of follow-up questions. So I hold myself back. It's rapid fire only from my side, not from yours. So don't feel like you have to rush through this. Are you ready to take this test, though?
I'm ready.
Okay, perfect. What is your go-to pregame meal?
Ooh, I'm pretty simple. Grilled chicken, rice, veggies.
Okay. I already have follow-up questions, but I'm not going to ask them. Favorite cheat meal or cheat snack?
Ooh. Does the dessert count? Can I say Dairy Queen?
Oh,
Dairy Queen. Yeah.
Ooh. Okay, I need to know, what's your order? What would be your order?
Ooh. Well, have you seen the new summer menu?
Oh, boy. I haven't, but I imagine that it's...
The Mixer Bowl Mashup Blizzard.
Wow. No,
give it a try.
No hesitation. I love that. No hesitation. Do you have any superstitions or pregame rituals?
Ooh, I do have superstition. I get dressed everything.
Let's go.
Everything left to right besides my elbow pads.
Has it always been that way?
It has.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Why not the elbow pads?
I don't know.
It's just always been that way, I guess.
It's just how it is.
Yeah. What is your go-to pump-up song?
Ooh, anything Pitbull, probably Time of Our Lives.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine now it's draft day. You're here in Ottawa. Your name gets called. You've had the opportunity to select your walk-up song. What would it be? Is it Pitbull?
Ooh, it'd probably either be Pitbull or maybe Macklemore. I Can't Hold Us.
Ooh, good. Yeah, good choice. Okay. I like that one. I approve. Speaking
Thanks for approval.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Speaking of music, in the locker room, who owned the aux and what was played most often?
Ooh, Jenna Buglioni was in charge of the aux, and then game days it was always Big Booty Mix. You throw in some country in there too, kind of whatever we were feeling for the day.
Do you have is it like a playlist that do you have a playlist that everyone kind of adds songs to, or is it just a pre-made? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I know I said I wouldn't ask any follow-up questions here. I have asked a bunch of them.
Here we are.
Yeah, here we are. We've walked down this road now. What's one thing that people don't already know about you?
Ooh, I was supposed to be a twin.
Oh, okay. What's one word your teammates would use to describe you?
Ooh, probably fast.
Okay.
I get that a lot.
Okay. Good attribute to have in a defender, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What's something that remains on your bucket list?
Ooh, travel to Italy.
Oh, I'm gonna ask why Italy?
I don't know, just great food, beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I ask questions and I already know the answer, and that was one of those things. Where it's like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
obviously beautiful. Finally, last question for you: what's a lesson that you've learned through your hockey journey that you wish more young players knew?
Ooh, I would say probably that your value isn't necessarily based on results. It's more of like how you carry yourself and how you uplift others and lead by example.
Ooh, whoa, that's a profound way to end the rapid fire question segment of the show, as well as, sadly, this episode of Rinkside Rundown. A huge thank you to you, Riley Brengman, for joining me today and taking us through your incredible journey from your early days in Michigan to winning national titles with Ohio State, representing your country, Team USA, and now preparing for the exciting next chapter of your career in the PWHL with the upcoming PWHL Draft. Riley, it's been an absolute pleasure. Time has flown by. I can't thank you enough for joining me today on the show.
Chris, thank you so much for having me.
And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow hockey fans. Your support helps us to grow and bring you more inspiring stories just like this one from around the world of women's hockey. I'm Chris Sinclair. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time on Rinkside Rundown. Cheers.